this is Clint, and we're back for another session of 15 Minutes for God. And this one's going to take a little turn differently. Um, I have mentioned in the past that I've had some health issues, heart issues that have been going on, and they wanted me to go for a sleep study. So this past week I spent a night at the sleep center, and some things changed that have altered my look at how I'm doing this stuff. And I believe that was God talking to me. And at any rate, we'll jump into it from that as versus going back into Romans right this second. Um, so the other night, I had to show up at the sleep center about 8 o'clock, and you basically spend the night there. And when I got in, there was like a couple other people there that were doing them, and then the nurse. And so I get into the room, and the nurse says, well, these other guys are ahead of you. It's going to take 30, 40 minutes for me to get them situated and come back to you. So you can watch TV or hang out or whatever. And I said, fine. She left, and I didn't want to watch TV. I brought my Bible and also brought a Bible study book that I was using to get some more insight into Romans to continue the series on that. And there were a few things that I read in it that I could use, but there wasn't a whole lot in there that I hadn't already mentioned or was working on. But then I jumped into the New Testament Gospels, and I was reading through a few of those, and the thing that popped out at me was I felt like God was saying, well, hey, you need to keep telling people that time's short and you better make a decision. And so about that time, I'm just sitting there, and the nurse comes in and says, hey, it's time to go to bed. So she hooks 4011 wires up to my head, and then I jump into bed, and I guess she's watched me all night. And the next thing I know, it's like 5 in the morning. She pops in and says, hey, sleep study's over. Did fine. We'll get in touch with you in a couple of weeks, and you can get dressed and head on home. So I put all my stuff together, and I'm packed up, and I'm going out the front door, and there's like only one car heading out I can see in the front, and it's still 5 in the morning. It's pitch black. I'm on the other side of town and don't know the area that well as far as that goes. And you're thinking, hey, I don't want to be walking out here with nobody and meet some crazy person that I don't need to see. And so I quickly run out and jump into my car. There's only mine and one other car there. Turn the key on, and first thing I hear out of my radio that's on is Billy Graham. And so I just stopped for a minute. And Mr. Graham had passed away just a day or two ago, and they were running this tribute to him, and it was actually a talk that he'd given. It wasn't a sermon, and I stopped there to listen to it for a few minutes, and I couldn't get away from it. So I listened to the last about 10 minutes or so of it, and actually it wasn't a sermon. It was a speech he'd given to a program called TED Talks. And TED is the initials for Technology, Entertainment, and Design, which is some kind of think tank group that puts together people to talk about new advances in all kinds of technology that's going to help the world, I guess. And they've been around for a long time. And this particular talk was in 1998, and it was primarily about the rise of the internet, from what I can see here. And they asked Billy Graham to be the last speaker. And when I thought about the internet thing, I went and looked at some other sources, and they said in 1998, less than 4% of the world was using the internet, and by 2018 or 2017, the last figures they had said almost 60% of the world population was using the internet on a daily basis. So when they jumping back into that session in 1998, Billy Graham was 80 years old, and he started in there, and the first thing he was out of his mouth was that, hey, I'm not exactly sure why I'm here, and I hope you're not disappointed at the end. And I got a big chuckle out of everybody. And oh, if you'd like to, if you go to TED Talk Billy Graham or Billy Graham TED Talks on the internet, it'll bring up the YouTube, and you can see the whole thing. It's about 25, 26 minutes, something like that. You can see actually what I had seen. But anyway, in this thing, the little bit that I heard at the end got me so excited that when I got home, I had to find it, and I was able to pull it back up just like I just told y'all you could, and listen to the whole thing. And in his speech, like he said, he was the last guy coming on, and he wasn't exactly sure why he was there. But the thing that he knew over his lifetime was that technology was always advancing, and he was 80 years old, and he probably wouldn't live around to see the things in the future that were going to be even greater and better and that kind of stuff, even though he did last till 2018. And his comment was, though, that in all the different ages of technology, and there's been technology advances from day one all the way up to now, that certain things, three things in particular, have not really changed. And the reference point he used was King David and the Israelites back way before Jesus. David helped introduce iron into their culture, which took them basically from a Stone Age type thing into the Iron Age, where they were able to fight better, build better, protect themselves better. It was a technological advancement for them. Now, he said that that didn't necessarily compare to the advancement with the microchip, but for that age, it was pretty significant. But he said that, given that, there were certain things that remained the same and never changed from one period to the next. And then he cited a bunch of different scientists and inventors and what have you that were basically saying that seeing all they could see with science, there had to be some type of higher intelligence that was behind all this stuff. And one of the guys that he mentioned was a guy named Pascal, which was a 17th century, I guess, mathematician, and he was supposedly the guy that invented the first calculator, which ultimately became computers, and so he was kind of the ad hoc father of the computer. Pretty smart guy. He only lived to be 39, and he did a lot of this stuff when he was less than 20. But the biggest thing to me was I had heard of him through science classes and things when I was a kid in college and those type of things. But sometime around 1650, he found Jesus and accepted Christ and found God. And he came up with what was called Pascal's wager. And I had never heard about that because they don't talk about stuff related to religion in school when I was there. That was a no-no. So I'd never heard of that. But Pascal's wager was that if you bet on God for your salvation and you were wrong, then you really didn't lose anything. But if you bet against God on salvation, and there really is a God, you've lost everything. And that hit me like a brick. Thinking about my introduction to this first group of videos, and that's what I talked about when I was in college. I thought that was my big idea. You believe in God and you're wrong, you're just going to end up in the hole. But if you don't believe in God and I'm right, then you're going to lose everything. And that's what Pascal's wager was. And that was taught 300 years before I was born. And it's like the Bible said, there's nothing new under the sun, and probably somebody mentioned it 1,000 years before Pascal. And the links are all there together. It just flows in time. And the biggest, and that part hit me like right in the face. It was like, okay, you've talked about this. Now this guy's talking to this. You better listen to the rest of what I got to say. And that's coming not from Billy Graham, but coming from God. That was like a stop sign to me. Well, jumping back into Billy, he said, well, all this different technological ages, three things that he could see were always present, no matter what age we were in. It had not been solved with all the different advances we had. One of them was a basic evil in humans. The second was suffering that resulted from evil and just generalities. And the third one was death. Now, very quickly to go over that, I mean, the basic evil, according to a Christian view, is that you either believe in God or you don't. We've got our free will choice. And if you don't, then you're free to do whatever you think you want to do. And that started from Adam when they made the first mistake and ate the apple. Well, evil has progressed all the way down and down and down. And if people don't realize that and don't come to Christ, then all the things that they can do being evil. I mean, stealing, lying, adultery, raping, murdering, all the different things that could happen, that's coming from that pure source of evil. And technology has not changed that one bit. And unless somebody accepts Christ and changes their life, that won't change. Well, the second thing he talked about was suffering. And that covers everything from just, first off, I guess a big one with technology would be poverty. Even with all the technological changes, we still have lots of people that are living in poverty. And we haven't been able to pass all these changes to these folks to improve their life. And it was that way in David's time, and it's that way now. And just wars, the rumors of wars. I mean, we've been fighting since day one, one way or the other. Somebody doesn't like somebody, or they've got to be the big kid on the block with a stick, that they're going to be in charge and take everything away. We've got diseases that haven't been cured. We've cured a lot of them with the technology, and being a pharmacist, I've been in that industry for a long number of years, but that stuff still hasn't gone away, and there's still people suffering with diseases and things that aren't going to be cured. And just we'll move in another area in a second, but it's just the technology is not the answer, and it's somewhat of the human condition. And the third thing is death. All of us are going to die. And people don't think too much about that when they're young. They're out going to do all the great things and run around and do all the things they need to do, but they don't think about how short their life is and how quick death could be. And when you link all these things back together, the evil and the suffering and the death, you see it on the news every night. I mean, people get robbed, people get mugged, people get raped, people get hit and run. I mean, it's crazy stuff going on. I mean, can't draw out all the wild things that are happening, but it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And time is short. Our time is short. Some people, when you say time is short, some people, when you talk God, some people are thinking, well, oh, you're saying, hey, God's going to be back tomorrow. Well, they've been saying that for ages and ages. And I'm going to quote out of here, out of the Bible, that they have been doing that. Because out of Luke chapter 19, verse 11, it says, and this was right before Jesus was crucified. He was coming close to Jerusalem. And it says, the crowd was listening to everything Jesus said. And because he was nearing Jerusalem, he told a story to correct the impression that the kingdom of God would begin right away. Well, that was before he was crucified. Moving on down the road, people have been saying God's going to be coming back in the 1600s, and the disciples thought they were coming back then, and the 1800s and the 1900s, and I guess in my time the most significant one was 2000, the millennium. They thought the computers were all going to blow up, and who knows, people were then saying that Christ was going to be coming back, and he hasn't. He might come back in 20 minutes. He might come back in 10,000 years. That's his business. The time is short is nothing to do with him coming back. The time is short is our life. Our lifetime is short. We don't know when we're going to walk out the door and get hit by the bus. We don't know when we're going to go to the doctor and have the cancer diagnosis. We don't know, like a friend of mine that I've been knowing for several years, and he was a smart man. He owned his own business for a long time, and now his family thinks he's got Alzheimer's. And the last time I saw him, he didn't know who me and my wife were. He thought we were strangers. And just, you don't know. All these different things can affect your life. Your time is short to accept Christ, beg for forgiveness, accept that free gift, and be able to live for eternity versus dying and your life is over when the death comes. And I guess that's what I was getting out of that conversation or that speech, was God was talking to me, telling me, hey, you've got a voice to be able to stand up here and talk to folks about this thing. When you talk about the history, you can talk about all the poetry and the different things that are in the Bible. That's great. But if you don't spend more time telling them that they have very little time to make that decision for Christ and to live forever, then you're missing the boat. And that's what changed my thought patterns on that. I'm going to be changing this program. I'm still going to be pushing through Romans and getting into the next chapters and doing the things, but I'm going to spend less time on the history and the specifics and more time on Christ, because you'll see in every one of these sections, going all the way back to Genesis, in the beginning, Christ was there. And over and over and over again, the big emphasis from God is that you got to make a decision. And here it is. Here's Christ. Here's what you've got to do. And it pops out in every one of these stories. And God was telling me to spend more time on that part and less time on the history. I mean, yeah, that's great if you're in a history class, but we're in a life-saving class, and that's what I need to be doing. And even more today, when we see all the crazy things that are going on, when I started to think about this, I went back and looked a little bit at Billy Graham mentioned the Oklahoma bombings in 1995. I looked that up. There was 170 people killed. I went back to Jim Jones and his crazy suicide pact things back. That was in the 78, and there was like 900 people died. And then close to home here, you're seeing all these different shootings, the ones in Orlando, the ones in Las Vegas, and most recently this week or two ago with all the little kids in the school. And I can't tell you how much I feel sorry for them and their parents and everybody that was involved in that. But that's a perfect example of how short your life is. You don't know when you're going to walk to school in the morning or get off the bus and maybe not come home in the afternoon. So everybody needs to know this, and I'm going to try to change it to be more emphatic on that type of stuff. And hopefully it will be for the better. Matter of fact, I know it'll be for the better. And that's the thing that hit me like a brick. God was telling me, hey, you need to be doing this and a little less of that. So I'm going to try to change that up. At any rate, at this point, I want to close with a prayer like I always do. Father, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this. I'm going to try to do better and keep working with it and get more people's attention for it, for you, not for me. I want to ask your blessings on my family. My wife's still got a little bit of sickness. Please help take care of that. Got some issues going on with some dissensions with my kids. I'm not going to mention the names, but you know which one is involved. And I guess all I can say to that, Father, is if you were to come and ask me right now, if it was a choice, if I could go to heaven, but one of my family couldn't, I'd tell you straight up, take my family and leave me. Because that's what a father should do. And that's what you did. That's the example you gave us by coming as Jesus. And when we were sinners, you just gave Jesus to save us. Well, I couldn't do any less than that. And I love all my family, my wife, my 3 sons, and my daughter. But there's an issue of dissension between one of us, and you know. And some people would say they try to rebuild fences and repair the damage. I want to tear the fences down. I don't want any bridge between any of my family. And I want them to know that I love them very much. And anything that you can do to help bring us together, I would sincerely appreciate. Going on, my 2 cousins, one that was in the hospital with the rotator cuff is doing better, but in the process, her husband got sick and he was trying to help her, and now he's in the hospital, and just getting semi-good reports on him, but he does have some infection issues going on. So please keep him in your prayers and help them to get the antibiotics and things in him. They need to quickly to get him back up and back to speed and home. And we got that information from one of my other cousins who's had her foot operated on, and hopefully that's improving. She said that it was, and I know it's going to be painful, but hopefully she'll get back to being able to run around the room and kick her husband with a good foot and just take care of her. And lastly, I have I guess he's my third cousin, but it's separated a long way apart because I'll be 66 and he'll be working on 6, I guess. And my aunt called me and said that he was having some issues of having some bad dreams and really making him scared and cried when he was going to school and what have you. But the other issue on that is that I think he's very close to God. And the Bible says that if you want to get close to God, you have to come like a little child. Well, this little child, who's not even 6 yet, can recite the Lord's Prayer from memory. I know a lot of adults that can't do that. So I would ask you to just put your arms around him and love him and let him know that you're there and that you're his shepherd and that you always will be, and take those issues that may be working on him away. And I want to keep him in our prayers. And thank you, Lord, for everything you've done for us. And I ask everything in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys. We'll get back into the regular scheme here very quickly and back into our chapters. But we're going to emphasize that Christ is the biggest thing that we should be talking about. And like I said, if you have before and everyone to comment, yell at me, do whatever you need. I always want to see questions or concerns or anything that will help improve this. Of course, if you have prayers, send them too. I'll love to pray for anybody that we can. And God's always watching and waiting for those type of things. He wants us to talk to him. And if you want to like us or subscribe to us, that would be great too. I'd appreciate that. Again, until next time, I will see you. And y'all take care and love Jesus.